Hey everyone, Marnie here for another video. Welcome to a little reflection on some, like clickbait words. Bipolar, narcissist, codependent, people living with addictions. I felt to make this video because I have been experiencing something firsthand, and that leads me to my next point, that I'm an energy healer and a spiritual awakening support coach, I suppose you could say. My business is called Earth Heart Healing. It's an online platform that supports people through one-on-one sessions and transformational programs. Then I also have a lot of video content. I have a blog. I've written a book called Sparks from the Heart. And I brought up those code words, but I also want to preface you with this, that this video is from the perspective of the soul. I probably don't have the right scientific vocabulary at this point because right now it's just firsthand experience. So I talk the language of energy. It's a very holistic approach that considers that there is a person, there's a soul underneath all of these dysfunctional ways that we are, both on the codependent and the narcissistic side of the spectrum. And that in a way, both sides are equal in their expression of being a bit dysfunctional, and to bring compassion and awareness towards our dysfunctions and not judge them or be angry or cut one out or, condemn one versus the other. Like, it's all about healing. It's all about learning and understanding why the imbalances are the way they are and how to move forward from there. So I grew up in an addictions family, and this is also new for me to kind of talk about this more openly. But I've reached a point in my self-expression, my journey as a healer, that this is my story and my life matters too. My life experience matters too. And I think it will help people. So before I continue on, I just wanted to say that there's no one to be shamed or condemned or guilted or made the bad guy, because it's all a co-creative threading of different experiences put together that create perhaps a level of dysfunction that needs to be addressed and spoken to with compassion in order to heal. So that's why I'm bringing it forward the way that I am. And I also will say that all my family members are alive, and I love them all, and I see them. I don't live in the same country as them, but I do see them a couple times a year, and we have a present moment relationship, and I sincerely love each and every one of them because they're my family, and that's part of the healing journey. If you're watching this, everything's part of the healing journey, but if you're watching this and you're kind of like a soul-centered person or have that particular perspective, I like to bring in the idea of embodiment into this world, which means that we need to really address the dynamics that are in front of us, and our family is one of the closest dynamics we have to work with. Meaning that, we can do lineage healing in ayahuasca sessions or in energy healing sessions or in meditation and go back in time and heal our genetics, and it's a beautiful journey. That's a very real part of the embodiment process. And we can also heal in real time through our actions, through our desire to move into compassionate witnessing of specific dynamics, and to treat the other people around us as our friends. Also knowing that we have to create particular boundaries when there's things that are dysfunctional and are not working properly. And of course, there's a whole bunch of personal inner work that requires no one on the outside, only you, maybe a healer, maybe a guided meditation or two, maybe a plant medicine journey 1 or 17 or whatever it is that you need to do to get where you need to go. And the root of it is to follow your soul, your inner guidance, your inner compass that is guiding you. And a part of that will be connected to your higher self, which for me, as an energy healer studying different modalities, I like to use the science of Barbara Brennan. And to me, it's our 5th dimensional template, which is actually a layer of our auric field that holds this divine blueprint of who we are and may manifest energetically as a feeling state of our higher self. So to me, when I use the word higher self, I'm kind of correlating it to our physical embodiment, our whole healed, perfect divine blueprint in this life. So, and we're all kind of working towards that, striving towards that. And once we get there, which is possible, I mean, I'll just say for myself that when I first woke up in 2012, I had visions of this angel being like so joyful, so happy, so dancy, so fun. So, yeah, it's kind of like a mix between a Christmas elf and an angel that is pretending to be a human. Oh my gosh. So that's kind of what I feel like some days at this point, and I have to say. So, you know, it's a fun life. Our healed whole blueprints are attainable, and the process of getting there is to heal our nervous system and heal the parts of our subconscious energetically that are stuck in trauma responses, stuck in patterns. And these root patterns come from the fact that also, where is it? I wrote a book. I'm going to bring it up because I have a little story to talk about empowerment, like codependent, narcissistic relationships, and empowerment having to do with this particular book. In this book, I term it the trauma-based matrix that we all incarnate into at this point, unless you have really healed, like Buddhic parents that are really like just so healed and whole. I don't know personally any children that I can think of that have had that experience, or how they become as that particular generation. But I think we're kind of stepping into that at this point in our timeline on Earth, because there's so many of us out there that are doing the healing journey and stepping into our empowerment. So I just went through a breakup, and you know, for me it felt like a breakup. And it's painful. And it came on the coattails of going through my own creation that other women have gone through. That the container is still open. It's called the 7-Day $7 Chakra Alignment Journey. I went through the journey holding a container for some beautiful women, and I also was processing energetically as well. And by the end of it, you know, I held the space pretty good. I would say like a very good. The way that I tend to work in the healing arts is I will feel even when I'm working with one-on-one clients, I feel the experience they're going through energetically. And there's also another thought that we attract towards us, like if we're stepping into the role of the healer, hopefully in a professional capacity with good professional boundaries, we attract towards us the types of people that we are needing for our own healing journey. So it's almost like taking that archetypal role, and like spinning my energy around in front of you now, creates such a powerful vortex that you need people to mirror back to you the stuff that's going on internally. But because the internal vortex of the healer has such a strong coherence, it can support other people as well to find their healing and empowerment. I mean, that's been my particular journey. And I don't know any other way so far, other than I've experienced it helping people, and as well, I've strengthened my own coherence along the way. So I'm going everywhere. It started with, I'm still going to get to those words, guys, the bipolar, narcissist, and codependent. And yeah, so going back to my book, inside of the book, I talk about the trauma-based matrix. And to me, this is the world we grew up in, most of us. So I was born in 1988. I'm 36. And, you know, emotional awareness, mental health is really been like opened up in the last 5-8 years, I feel like, in modern day society. But what about emotional health? And realizing that all pieces go together. So our spiritual nature, our mental, our emotional, and our physical nature, they're all kind of woven together energetically in our auric field. So if one is out of balance, chances are the other ones will also be out of balance. You could also consider that our mental state is going to create a frame of mind that is connected to that particular emotion. So, and then if we leave it repressed for so long, these imbalances or these traumas, they will go into our physical body and create dis-ease. So, yeah, so it's really a holistic vibrational wellness or attunement that we're looking for in spiritual development and energy healing. So when I was writing this book, so I said I grew up in an addictions family, very much having codependent narcissistic tendencies, and pulling ourselves out of that idea. It's reflecting the fact that as a society, as humans, we're moving from the solar plexus kind of power-centered society into a more heart-centered society and into a more creative society, which could be corresponding to technology. Like I heard, I was watching Joe Rogan and what's the guy who runs Facebook? The Facebook guy. What's his name, guys? Mark Zuckerberg. That's the one. They were having a chat, and they were talking about technology and how it's going to take over people's jobs, and what does Mark Zuckerberg think of that? And he brought up that point that it's actually going to create a more creative society where we have time to work on our own creative expression, and how that will come about. Who knows? You know, this is for us to develop. I also thought it was interesting that he spoke to the fact that the technology is going to take jobs away, but it will be kind of the monotonous jobs that nobody really wants to do per se, and that maybe some people will work less, but also some people will work more if they feel their empowerment is moving through their profession, which I also thought was amazing, because it's just really giving more flexibility to the human being to be able to decide how they want to live their lives and where they're finding their joy. And there's nothing wrong with finding your joy inside of your job, I have to say. So, of course, you want it to be balanced, not just your job, but your family and your social life and your relaxation time and all the things. You know, it should be holistic. Okay, so moving into the more creative society. But right now we are coming out of this power structured, you know, our mind, hope you guys are following me. Our mind's energy field is our third layer of our field, which is directly corresponding to our solar plexus. So we live in a society that's very mind-based, very much allowing the mind to create ideas and thoughts and stories and memories based on our subconscious frequencies. And that allows those frequencies in the subconscious to remain primarily the same, passing down those vibrations lineage to like generation to generation through a lineage. Now we're all waking up and we are feeling our hearts come online. And the heart wants to balance all of the discord that's in the subconscious. So you might find that you are starting to think differently, that you're starting to realize that there's a lot of dysfunction in your family. Because that's the first place that we would go, because our inner child is the one that's holding most of the dysfunction, because we get programmed when we're children from our family and from our root experiences until we're about 7 is when our emotional first layer of our emotional body gets programmed or created. Could be considered the same thing, because it's kind of like we're this amoeba of energy, and the way that we build our energy field is by getting data from the outside world. So we're building it and creating it ourselves, but in a way it's getting programmed or built with the external vibrations that we experience around us. So that's our parents, our close siblings, any close relatives that live with us, close friends, our teachers. You know, I started to go to school when I was 3 years old. So all of this stuff is creating our subconscious. And when we experience trauma and it never gets addressed when we're young, or in extreme circumstances, because I am also aware of kind of like the elite systems that are out there kind of creating this matrix that all of the people kind of in the bottom layers, which is where I grew up, are also experiencing fractals of the same thing, but more vibrationally as opposed to like literally, where it was a very crazy journey for me to go in and learn that all of this trauma is actually at the top of the pyramid, like a very literal implementation, because it does create our kundalini to be more geared towards submission and into our will, so that it's really about the victim and aggressor kind of dynamic. Or maybe there's the savior complex can be in there too, like a bit of a trifecta: victim, savior, and aggressor. And these are all power roles: power over, power under, not meeting in the heart with boundaries and deciding what does each person want. Can we make a compromise? Can we not? Do we have to part ways? Do we agree? Do we not agree? It's more about just pure will and creating a structure based on getting people to bend to other people's wills. So, and that can come with manipulation and pockets of love contained. You know, there's still room for goodness. It's just not the one that's in charge. There's more contained pockets, whereas the will and the mind are running the show. And we're moving into a more heart-centered, emotional, intuitive, holistic understanding of the soul and how each human is equal and unique and beautiful in their unique expression, and the desire to steward life. So we're kind of moving into that expression as a humanity. So whoever's watching this, maybe you resonate with the, I don't know, elite hierarchy system. I have some past life memories of being in that, so I feel like somehow along the way my energy might be supporting that demographic, but who knows? I'm just putting that out there. From my personal experience, I only know what I know growing up in an addictions family, and also recently learning that there's maybe some bipolar nature in there. And I bring it up without judgment, without any shame, guilt, anger, nothing. Just the fact that if we don't look at it, it's going to continue to cause pain inside of a closed container that no one else can see, because usually family dynamics are protected by a home, by, you know, the authority figure inside of it. And it leads me to my next piece, that when I was writing this book, you know, a lot of it was talking about coming out of the trauma, all of my trauma-based patterning, and how I did that, and how the science of the auric field can support that journey, like understanding how it works in the process of learning lessons through the heart, and how that really does transmute frequencies and change the subconscious. Of course, we have to make new choices at the same time, but coming out of the victim and the aggressor and looking at everything like a lesson really does help to reprogram our biofield. Anyway, I shared a lot of personal stories of my growing up in here, and by the end of the editing process, all of it was deleted because I was protecting someone, because I was afraid of speaking my truth. Now that I've gone through a particular moment with a heartbreak, with a romantic experience, I felt that it was important to just share how important it is to bring these types of things into a space where they can be spoken about. And it all comes in time, because if we're coming from a place where we're angry at the person, or it's their fault, and I'm the victim, and they're the meanie, and they did it to me, and it's like all this kind of stuff. I mean, this is a part of the journey, but the victim is also playing into the role of that hierarchical system. So when we can move into our own empowerment and speak from the heart, it becomes about sharing experiences so that other people can benefit, and we can all move out of this system together, this dysfunction together, and heal and move forward. And the only way that really can happen is if we bring what we know to light, so that it can be moved into the light and let go of, you know? So, and I also found, like, creating Earth Heart Healing over the last 5 years, what is it without my personal experience? Like, how am I going to help people if I can't share a firsthand point of view, which is where I'm learning all of my information from primarily anyway, you know, like, so somehow it has to come around, and I want it to be as eloquent and as kind and compassionate as possible without pointing any fingers, just sharing what I learned. So when I went home at Christmas this year, yeah, this word bipolar and what it means. And we realized in our family that we have this particular condition. And what it does is it makes people really, really high and bright and shiny and exciting and adventurous and magnetic and just a joy to be around, and the light of the room, the movie star in the space. And then by virtue of the fact that they're kind of in this high, light, bright expression, but don't experience the balance in between of a centered individual where there's a whole bunch of emotions in there, like a whole bunch that most people feel. They will polarize into the worst emotions, fear, shame, guilt, to balance the fact that they're only able to feel both ends of the spectrum. So once I realized, this was a huge light bulb for me, once I realized that these particular types of people literally do not have awareness of what it feels like to live in the middle. So the emotions, the nuances, the communication, the gentle compassion, the presence, the ability to be in that space is really a foreign experience to them. And so they're living in these polarizations of moving back and forth, and it could be considered like an expression of that trauma-based matrix within one particular individual, having the victim and the aggressor in the same sphere, and then moving back and forth within them. And the reason why the middle is not available is because those people are traumatized, and their nervous system isn't allowing them to access really big parts of their energy field. So I guess I'm bringing this up because it's like really important to have compassion firstly for these people, and also notice, as you know, I tend to be more in the codependent side, which one of my family members was like, change the word to what, compassionate caregiver, I think she said, something like that. I was like, huh, yeah, okay, the caregiver. We live in the middle. We live in the middle part, and the shiny is very exciting to be around, you know, because we don't have that ability to, or we haven't fostered it. I mean, I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, wow, okay, so one person in the relationship has like both ends of the spectrum and the other one has the middle. But what if we work on ourselves enough to pull in the rest of it, you know, for the ones who are codependent, like pull in your empowerment, pull in your shiny, pull in your movie star vibes, pull in your creative, like self-expressive, I'm the baller in the room kind of vibes. Pull them in. Like, this has been my lesson. Be sure of yourself. I guess coming through a particular conditioning in my family where there was, you know, only one person got to have that role at a time because it becomes threatening to the ego. That's another thing. This is all about breaking down the ego structure. So our egos will defend, they'll repress, they'll avoid, they'll deny, they'll project. And the goal is to get the ego to break down a little and integrate new information. And that is very scary to our egos, because on the other side of what is known to the ego feels like death. So our egos only know what they know. Our mind structure only knows what it knows. And when we want to recreate our subconscious to let in new vibrations, let in new information, it feels like death. And that can be conscious or unconscious within the particular person that has their ego breaking down. When I first woke up spiritually and began moving into my heart space, I literally felt like I was dying a couple times. Not physically, I knew I wasn't dying physically, but my ego was so afraid of death. And I had to sit on my bed or lie down on my bed and breathe and just hold the space. And maybe some of you have had this experience as well. And just breathe into death. And what's on the other side of death? a lot more information, a lot more wholeness, a lot more healed ways of being and acting. So I guess the danger of living in unhealthy dynamics in our family is usually the narcissistic personality wants to contain it all, because for them, for this type of person, their identity is so connected to their sense of worth. So because the middle part is kind of not accessible to them, they have to attach their self-worth on something, and it becomes their expression outward. So that's why these types of people love to give to the community. They want to feel their value, and so it's coming out on the outside. You know, it's through external interactions, which are not negative. They should happen for everyone. We all should be giving a little bit to our communities as much as we can, through a time, knowledge, financial means, whatever it is, baked goods, who knows, whatever you feel called, however you feel called to share. But so because for these people that the inner worth isn't there, it's really, really scary for their ego to be told that it's bad. And a lot of the time they black out the parts that are bad, that have done bad actions within them. So I just came to a point in those last couple of days where I wanted to, share from someone who's very intuitive and quite deep, and working from the soul level, where yes, I know I don't have all the scientific terms, and I'm not a doctor or a therapist or a psychologist or anyone in those realms. I'm just an energy healer. I'm just someone who has lived these experiences, and I'm talking firsthand, sharing entertainment. Is that what people say on this? For entertainment purposes only, and I'll probably have to put a disclaimer at the front, which I'm going to do. And okay, and then flipping to the codependent or compassionate caregiver type personality, they're the ones that are in the middle. So usually it's like more of a feminine presence, and because these people usually find themselves in dynamics in families because as a child they were never allowed to express their full identity, which includes the rock star version, the big version, the independent one who's holding the space version. Or most of the time in this trauma-based matrix that I'm dubbing the term for our reality at present and in the past, and maybe we're moving out of it now. Because of the trauma, everyone becomes enmeshed within each other. So that's another part of our growth now, is like we're all turning into, I heard this analogy once, like we're all popping like popcorn, and we're moving into our individuality, which is exciting, and our boundaries become implemented, and we have to do all this like relational healing work. And before we do that, living in families that have more enmeshment, all of these roles, only a certain amount of people can be the lead. Some people have to be the background. So those people are the codependent ones, and they really develop in the middle, and that caretaking energy really becomes very well developed within us. So what happens is, again, there's nothing wrong with that. Caretaking is amazing. We all need a mother. We all need the nurturing friend, the compassionate listener. Everyone benefits from that. What's not good about it is if we stay in dynamics that are hurting our own boundaries because we're just used to that conditioning. Because the narcissistic person on the outside is unwilling to realize their dysfunction because their ego is so connected to their self-worth. So you see how it's all kind of woven together. So when I flew back to where I am now in Costa Rica, I sat beside this amazing woman who, shout out if you're listening to this, who was also on a soul level and had some key pieces for me, because she was a successful businesswoman who could see my value as a soul-centered individual. And, I'm working on my business right now, and I have a lot of hurtful energy that's projected on me from a particular family member who's really good with money. And I had to pull myself out of that. And I realized part of it is just because he can't see what it is my value is. It's also threatening to that person's ego, because I am deconstructing egos. And if you don't want to be deconstructed, then I'm going to look kind of scary, you know? So I have compassion for that, but I really needed someone to fill that role of seeing my worth, allowing, you know, giving me the okay on the external world to keep going for my business and keep at it, keep striving, keep moving. So this person explained to me that when we stay in these roles, these relationship structures, we're actually harming ourselves and the other person, because the dysfunction is not okay. And once we realize how important emotions are in our world, it's really not okay the way that the way that we are acting in our family dynamics, with the repression of trauma-based ways of interacting. And another little piece that I wanted to put in as food for thought is that often what happens in these codependent narcissistic dynamics is that the narcissistic person isn't really able to feel their emotions, because that happens in the middle. That happens in the middle of our ability to come into our heart center. So they have an emotion, and this is all very unconscious. So this is where the compassion comes in. They have an emotion and it comes in and they can't feel it fully. So then they have to project it on someone else and put it into their field. And that's usually the caregiver person or the codependent person. And that person, over the years, if the dynamic never gets healed, it really can harden that person's heart, and it can really fill them with really negative vibrations that they don't deserve to hold on to. But because their self-worth and their individuality was never fully developed, because they were conditioned from young childhood times to stay only in the middle part, they have trouble with their boundaries and saying, no, I don't want to take this on anymore. This way of acting, this way of being, this way of relating with me is not okay with me, you know? So that leads me to this moment within myself. After listening to this woman on the plane have a really beautiful long conversation with me, there was ways of being in a relationship that I was in that I would have probably just kept taking on in my life, because that's what I've been used to as a child. But somehow, during this chakra alignment journey, which I recommend to all of you who are listening right now, that realigns your subconscious, brings in the new vibrations for the year, and really just kind of cleans house energetically, and does shift a lot. I mean, I have firsthand experience of it. I had to make a new choice, and that was really scary, and it was really scary and foreign, and it felt like I was walking into new terrain. But in the end, I think it's all for the better. I came out of it feeling it's just today, who knows what tomorrow will bring, but right now I'm talking about what I feel right now in this moment. And I feel like I protected myself, and my vibrational identity is coming out because I created a personal boundary for myself. And that, even though it's sad to let go of the old, it's important to honor what wants to come in and to honor the new within our vibration and in our lives. So I just wanted to timestamp this moment with a little message, and really I'm looking down because I have a picture of my family staring back at me, and it's just I really do love my family. And that's another maybe a little piece to just put in there. We are not our actions. Our spirits are not our actions. Our actions shape our vibration and they shape our personality, but they can always be altered. And we shouldn't, this is the key of soul healing. We should never, should, would, could, maybe those are the right words, but it's better to see the person underneath the actions and touch that person's goodness. If they are a human soul, that's where the esoteric part comes in. If they have a human soul, somewhere in there is goodness. no matter what, because human souls are created from a positively polarized baseline, which means our baseline is goodness. Think about when a baby comes out of the womb. Look at its eyes. See if you can see one in your mind's eye. Listen to the laugh. This is how all human souls start. And the way that we become distorted is fully and purely because our own goodness and our own purity has been so tortured and raped and abused, sorry for those difficult terms, that some people get hardened and become those experiences that they had done to them when they were younger. That's for human souls. If I am a little bit all over the place for those of you who are still here and I haven't talked about aliens with you, but if they're an extraterrestrial soul, it might be that they don't polarize towards goodness, and that's a whole other can of worms, can of extraterrestrials, which I won't get into today. But yeah, so when we see the other people as good and focus on the actions and the conditioning as something that can be adjusted for the benefit of us and others, it just becomes a lot more compassionate. Boundaries are still required when actions are not changing and they're causing harm, but that's just about boundaries and not the person's core identity. So, of course, it's a lot of work to do this stuff. It's not just going to happen overnight, but I just wanted to share my insights of the moment here at Earth Heart Healing. And if you have questions, if you want to book a session, everything is available over at earthhearthealing.com. It's pretty straightforward. If you're a new client, you can start with a clarity call, and usually sessions start, like if we were to work together, they start with developing the heart coherence a little bit more strongly. We work at that, and then from the virtue of working on developing that, subconscious things will come up to be start to be worked on. So that's the process that I take people through, and I'll see you next time in a video. Okay, bye for now.